future people. Hello and welcome back, my dear friend, partner in crime, everything, Jade. I'm just waiting to make sure that we are live. So just give me a couple of seconds so I can also silence my face on silence my voice on Facebook. Okay, beautiful. And we are live. So welcome back, Jade. If for all the new people on the Recover from HA support group that they don't know me, I'm Claudia, the founder of the group and Nourished by Claudia, and I'm a nutrition and dietetic clinician. And here we have today Jade from the It's a Mind Game podcast. She's a personal trainer, a mindset coach, and the mindset coach of the program that we run together, because Jade and we run the HA community and also a program that can help you to move past the disorder behaviors and also that can help you to ultimately get your period back. And we had a couple of very lucky weeks, I shall say, because we had another lovely woman from the community getting pregnant. We had another period. So it's a celebration time, but in our life, every single day, we always find something to celebrate anyway. So long introduction. Welcome, Jade.
That was a very lovely introduction. I thank you, Claudia. I'm so happy to be chatting. It's been a long time since we've done a live together. We're always touching base during the week about our beautiful community, but it's been a long time since we've been here.
I agree. And plus today is double whammy because we run the community 5:30 this morning, then we're having this live right now. So this is definitely one of my luckiest day of the week. And today we're going to discuss a topic that is so very near and dear to many women that are part of this group, which is how to move past resistance. Meaning we get to a point where it looks like that we have tried everything under the sun in terms of increasing the caloric intake, reducing the exercise output. We have listened to all the podcasts, read all the articles, read all the books, and still it's hard to take the next step, the extra step that is so much needed to actually get the period back. And I really would love to get Jade's words of wisdom in this one, because being a mindset coach, she deals with this type of topic on every single day, really. So when you have a person that comes to you, Jade, and you can see that they have been struggling and they have been in this journey for a very long time. And let me also remind all of you that being in the HA recovery journey for 6 months feels like an eternity. Even if it isn't, feels like an eternity, because every day there is that constant reminder of, I don't have a period, I'm still engaging in my disorder behaviors. Am I gonna get better? What can I do? And so on and so forth. And you all know the drill anyway. So if you have that kind of person sitting in front of you telling you how frustrated she feels after dealing with the lack of period and lack of progress for many months, what would you say? Where would you start? What would you address first, Jade?
It's always the simplest answer, but it's addressing motivating factors. And often it's our motivating factors are going to chop and change throughout our progression and our development, because as we start to evolve, we're going to face bigger challenges, we're going to face bigger obstacles, the timeline starts to spook us a little bit. We hear certain stories that inspire us to keep going. We hear other stories that make us like, why hasn't it been me yet? Maybe it's not meant to be. And we have all these new thoughts start to creep in, which have the capacity to kind of shake us in our boots. And then we don't know whether to hold steady, keep moving forwards, or it can also create some blind spots for us. And often the blind spots are unintentional, which is where it can be really helpful to be speaking to someone on the outside, whether it be a friend, family member, or someone like yourself, Claudia, or a mindset coach like I, because we can see things from a different light that you might not be seeing at the time. And a really good example of motivating factors would be, let's say you've just started your HA recovery journey in regards that you've just kind of worked out you've got HA, right? And you've read the books, you're watching YouTubes, you're listening to lives right now, and you're sort of like, all right, I got to eat a little bit more, I've got to train a little bit less. And some part of it's kind of exciting because you've gotten closure on it. You know what's going on now. You know you can resolve it. And it's almost like a honeymoon period, because everything feels new, enticing. Like even the idea of eating new things, you might not want to do it all day every day, but you're excited to kind of give it a go and see what that feels like. Perhaps if you do witness body changes, they're ones that you really like maybe your muscles feel more plump or your energy is feeling really great. So all of those things are happening and you're like, oh, this is great, I've got this, I can do it, no worries. And then perhaps a month goes by and you don't have your period back. And that's when we start to feel these bits of resistance, because it's like, well, maybe I'm excited over nothing. Maybe it's not going to work for me. Maybe I'm not ready to change anymore or tweak any more things. I've reached that distance of comfort. And sometimes what can shift is we get stuck in the idea of what we think our goals should be, right? So for some women, it's like, oh, I should want to have my period back. And that can be a really big part when they find out what HA is. It's like, well, I should want to have it regularly, shouldn't I? Like, yeah, of course I do. Of course I do. And then the motivation's there and then you don't get it back in a month or 2 months. And it's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't want it. Maybe it's not that big of a deal. And that's when we really need new motivating factors to continue moving forwards. And, you know, Claudia, you would see this yourself, but a lot of the time we draw solely on our own motivators as ourselves, but sometimes it can be really helpful to draw upon external motivations too. And some really good examples of that would be, you know, a lot of women who are here right now, they want to conceive and they want to have children. So perhaps getting your period back doesn't seem as enticing anymore, but perhaps the idea of being a mum who can eat spontaneously or eat muffins with their kid on their first birthday, perhaps that's really exciting to you. Maybe that's the person you want to be. So suddenly you're willing to challenge foods again. And it's not because you want to get your period back, it's because you want to be the mum who can eat fun foods with her child when she chooses, right? So it's still all like within your will. It's not as though you're free to reign, but that could shift your motivation. Or it could be, you know, that your partner or your mum or your dad or your sibling are sincerely concerned about your health, right? You personally, not that big of a deal, but it kind of bothers you that your family and loved ones are concerned. So that could be a new motivating factor. What can I do so that, you know, mum trusts that I'm all right? What can I do that my brother or my sister or my partner isn't going to worry as much today? And we can use all of those tools to help revitalize that motivation to ensure that we're picking things that are going to keep us moving forward. Hopefully that makes sense.
No, it does. And I love how you describe the honeymoon phase because it sounds so very true. Also, when I went through it, I remember there was kind of a permission slip to finally sleep, take a rest, and eat the fun foods, which I pushed away for so many years. And I'm wondering, realistically speaking, how many months should a woman give to herself before seeing results? Because sometimes you get people that have tried it for a couple of months or maybe 3 months, and then they say, look, this is not working for me. Maybe it's not even an HA, and they go down the fertility treatment route, or they simply give up, or they look for different options. So how many months or years or weeks would you normally say to a woman, just please stick to this and you will notice progress?
Yeah, look, at the very least 3 months, at the very least, but 6 is even better. Because if you think, and to a degree, I love and hate that question, because I love it on the idea that you need to give it time, but I also dislike it because women enter this stage of life from very different worlds. So you've got women who have been undernourished for 10, 15, 20 years, who haven't had a cycle for perhaps 15 years, versus somebody who may have lost their cycle for 3 months. Either way, it's so important for them to get their cycle back and heal their behaviors around food and exercise, though one could need perhaps 12 months of really intentional commitment to recovery. And I say intentional deliberately because I don't think you can accidentally recover your period. I think look, there has been one or two women on the podcast that sort of accidentally did it, but it was they literally changed worlds. Like they went overseas, they were living with a different family, and they just put their hands up and went, I'll live however everyone around me is living. And they just surrendered to it all. So to a degree, they sort of just dived right in because they gave up the way that they were living and just changed something new. But I do believe that if you want to recover, you need to be doing ongoing assessments of what's changing on a regular basis, because we will progress forward and then we get comfortable again and we think that we can just hold steady and things will keep changing. When the reality is, when you start to feel quite comfortable, that's generally a sign of, cool, what's next? Because if we go too intense and change too many things at once, it can be really scary and it puts us off anyway. So you would have heard me say to some of the ladies in our community, I love using a confidence scale, which is a scale from 0 to 10, right? 0 is absolutely no way in hell I am not doing that, versus 10, I could do it so easily if I'm not already doing it. And you want to be picking tasks that keep pushing you forward, that sit between a 7 and a 10. Because that means every time you set out to do something and you actually do it, you're building your resilience. You're proving to yourself that you can actually do what you say you're going to do. And suddenly it's way more encouraging to keep investigating and to keep exploring and to see what your threshold is. Versus if you pick, look, honestly, even if you're picking 10s all the time, it's not very helpful because you're not getting that tick of, oh, wow, I did that. But if you're picking things that could be around a 4 or a 5, they could be too intimidating for you to do daily or every second day. So you do them once and go, oh my God, thank God I survived that. But then you don't revisit it again for 6 months or 3 months. And that's not going to ensure that you're getting your period back as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So incredibly long-winded answer because there's so many variables. But I would say at the very least, 6 months.
Yeah, and thank you for answering that. And I love what you said in the very beginning. I hate and love the questions because I feel exactly the same way. Sometimes I do receive random messages of women asking me, so I've increased my caloric intake for the past couple of weeks. How long do you think that I should wait until I get my period back? And my answer normally is, I have absolutely no idea about your story. I have no idea for how long you've been dealing with your disorder behaviors. I don't know how malnourished your body is. So it's practically impossible for me to give you a timeline. And even after I met you and we have gone through your story, it's still impossible to me to give you a timeline because every single person is different. We are not made with a cookie cutter. And from a biological perspective, it has been shown that it takes 3 months for hormones to change, to shift and change. That doesn't mean that it's going to take 3 months to get your period back. Possibly, if you give your 100%, but it's just, it looks like that we required at least 3 months to see changes on our blood test results. And I think that it was really important also to address this kind of answer because that's something that we get quite a lot. I've been doing the work, how long is it going to take? How long is the piece of a string? Kind of situation. Now, switching gear, what would you say? And I'm putting you on the spot today, Jade. We have not prepared this conversation before, but Jade, she's amazing. She's helped all the women in the community to really get to a better place in terms of their behaviors around food and training. And there are a few questions that I really would like Jade to answer today. And one of them is, what would you say to someone that has really done the work and is in the waiting period, which is the period between doing the work for long enough and waiting for the period to come back? How would you keep the motivation up in that sort of situation? Which kind of conversation would you have with those type of women?
First of all, that's probably the hardest part. Right? When you've done all the things and you've got medical professionals saying, well, you're eating enough, you're resting enough, you look happy, you look joyful, sit and wait. Because let's be honest, with our personality types, that is one thing we do not enjoy doing and sort of only do it as a result of this process. But honestly, I describe it as walking through the mud, right? It's knowing that as soon as you persist with taking the steps, at some point, either the sun will come up and the mud's going to dry, or you're going to make it to fresh water, right? Because logically, and sometimes you do need to draw logic into the equation, there's more evidence to suggest your period is going to show up any day if you've done everything and you've left every stone unturned, versus there's something incredibly unique, specific, rare going on where your period isn't going to show up. So I think even with that idea of I've done all of the work, digging deeper into what exactly does that mean, I've done all of the work, because it's very unique to the individual. And I say this as, you know, my own journey, and I've heard your journey, Claudia, and there's times where what we think is all of the work changes. So there was a time where I thought, well, I've reduced my exercise as much as I can, but I was still training 3-4 times a week. And at the time, I really didn't see it as anything else because it wasn't that much. But then on observation, it was like, well, for my unique individual body, perhaps I need to do less. And I say exercise specifically because if you go by guidelines, a lot of people out there suggest that if you're doing under 30 minutes, your heart rate doesn't go above 130 beats. It kind of doesn't count. Like, it's exercise, but it won't affect your cycle. And there's plenty of women who recover with those guidelines, and that's wonderful. But there's plenty of women who don't. And I'm definitely one who fell into that category. So part of my I'm doing it all changed. So my answer, again, long-winded, is still doing reassessments every 30 to 60 days on, have I left every stone unturned? Is there something left? Is there something even emotionally I'm missing out on? Like, is your work incredibly stressful? So home life is great, exercise, good relationship, food's wonderful, but you go to work and you're just like imploding, because that's maybe something that you need to work on, an emotional stressor. And the biggest part of that process really is, and it's that surrender piece. It's having the confidence in knowing that if you have put your best foot forward every single day and continue to do so, having the confidence that the outcome will occur, because again, the evidence suggests that it will. And the only way to get through it is to trust and have faith that your body is going to return to doing exactly what it wants to do. Because you've got to remember, at the core, this is something your body wants to do. It instinctively did it when you were 8 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old, without any kind of notion except for a chemical chain of reactions. And it magically happened, right? And it's meant to do it ever since. So there's some comfort in knowing that your body wants to do it more than what it doesn't.
And there is also something that you said about releasing the control. And I think that that's the opportunity in the waiting game, of letting go of that control that you have been holding on for such a long time. It's I think that the waiting game, even though it's frustrating, sometimes overwhelming and anxiety provoking, is our best chance and opportunity to dig deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, to make sure that we don't leave any stones unturned. And I was listening to your words, and I was thinking, so many women are going to listen to Jade and think, but that's so unfair though, because there are women out there that can have a certain job and get their period. They can train 4 times, 5 times a week and get their period. But the reality is that unfairness presents itself in different ways in life. It doesn't mean that there is nothing against the person that doesn't have the period, but life can be unfair, full stop. And it's all about tuning in with ourselves, our needs, and what our bodies it's really screaming for. And maybe for some of us, that means not being able to go back to training as they knew it, not being able to ever diet again, not being able to squeeze themselves in a size 0, 2, 5, I don't know, depends from which country you come from, a very small size of jeans. And from one point of view, that could be seen as unfair. But from the other point of view, that could be seen as, biology and your chance to live a thriving life where you are not consumed with food thoughts and hours of training, and you can simply be yourself, the person that you were meant to be from the very beginning. And I've just
Yeah,
realized
and
I've been talking to you until now, but I'm
yeah,
meaning all the women listening to us today.
but it's such an interesting concept in itself, the idea of letting go in order for your body to function the way that it's always wanted to, because we feel like we grieve almost the exercise that we want to do, the size that we want to be, the lifestyle that we want to live, though we're grieving the identity that we can't obtain as a result of it as well, because we so badly want to be the mother. We so badly want to be the cycling woman, or the one with optimal hormones, or the one who has a good relationship with food. So sometimes it's opening your awareness to, okay, it could be unfair that some of your lifestyle needs to change, though it's quite unfair you're living a life where you're saturated by food thoughts, or you're afraid to go out, or you don't want to attend social events. And sometimes looking at it from that perspective can be grounding, because it's like, well, what are you missing out of by remaining in the exact same position you're in right now? Are you missing out on a social life? Are you missing out on finding the man or woman of your dreams? Are you missing out on a child? Are you missing out on work advances because you won't give up training, and so therefore you won't work a little bit extra? Like what's happening as a result of your current life? And another thing to sort of reframe too is, do you want to be doing what you're currently doing in 30 years? Like if you have to live this exact life the next 30 years, because some part of it's like, yeah, but I can do it for now. I'm in my 20s, or I'm in my 30s, or one more year, one more year, one more year. Okay, one more year. Though where's the roundabout end? Like where do you turn off? Because at some point you will reach a time, and I think sometimes that's when it's hardest, is when you go, oh my goodness, I've let this go so long, I just want it over right now. And the longer you leave it, the longer it can be to actually get to where you want to. And just something to sort of relax, a lot of the women here would be into sport and would be into exercise, is you see athletes retire from their sport, right? Footballers, Olympians, soccer players, tennis players, all those sorts of things. And a lot of the time you see them have a really difficult time, because all they've ever known is themselves as this athlete, this performer. And we can go through the same thing when we have our identity shift. So coming back to really, what's the influence you're having on the world? Like, what's the influence you're having to your friends and your family? And what do you want your legacy to be? Like, do you want your legacy to be that you were rigid and you stuck to your gym routine and you maintained a solid, steady physique? Or do you want your legacy to be, I'm not even going to make a suggestion, because I feel like whoever's listening to this right now, something will have popped up in their head.
Right.
So I don't want to saturate it with my ideas.
And also, just because it's just shared with us, for how long can you maintain that physique? Because once again, if you look at biology and gravity, you're not going to be able to maintain it until the day that you die, right? It's going to be a war against time.
And look, can I tell the ladies as well, from the personal training perspective, if you are undernourishing and training and you continually do so, you are going to deplete your muscle mass. So if you want to be the 60-year-old who lifts weights and looks jacked, like you have to fuel. There is no way you can skim your way through dieting the whole way through until you're 60. And like, let's say you don't care about kids, because some people don't, like, that's totally fine. That's cool. Right. But if you want to maintain an athletic, sporty physique until you can no longer move, at the very least, you need to fuel properly anyway. Like, there's no way around it. You need to. And you will see women in particular in the gym who are in their 50s, maybe 60s, who perhaps have had an unhelpful relationship with food. And you will see that they do not look well. They have a small frame. You can see their muscles, you can see their veins. They don't look well. And that's because they've been on incredibly low calories and high exercise regimes for a really long time. And it genetically we're not made that way. And if you do want to look great or muscly or athletic up into your 60s, the best thing you can do is make sure you've got your cycle, because if you've got those hormones circulating, you can actually have training to complement it, which helps you get the best results you'd ever imagine. But again, you don't know what it's like until you experience it. And hopefully, if anyone who has got their period back is listening to this live, if you've noticed how much your training has improved since training and having a cycle, I would love for you to comment below, because I feel like we need a little bit more awareness around how good training feels when we're thriving.
And also, it's not about the physique and the external appearances. What about also protecting bones and protecting our brain? So without circulating estrogens, we are more prone to diseases such as Alzheimer and Parkinson. And that the onset of Parkinson can happen anytime past the age of 50. And you're still far away from reaching 50, but I am very close, Jade. And all of a sudden, I do understand how important it is for me to really make sure that my rest is top notch and that my diet is as optimal as it can be. So thank you so much for sharing all these beautiful words of wisdom with us today. Where can people find you?
On Instagram, I'm jade.cameron with a double E for Jade. And then on Facebook, just as Jade Cameron as well, nice and easy. The podcast is It's a Mind Game, which if you search it on main platforms, you'll be able to find it there. And I'm also on YouTube as well. As you can probably tell, I love to chat. So if you want to send me a DM or an audio, I would absolutely love that as well. Because hopefully this conversation has led to more thoughts and more insights into what's next. And if that has happened, I would love to hear all about it.
Fantastic. And for all of you that are really committed to recovery and want to take the next step, Jade and I are working together. We have the beautiful HA community and a program running at the moment. We're looking to get more people in October. So if you want to put your hands up now and you're interested in joining us, send us a DM, leave us a comment, and then we're going to get in touch with you. So thank you, Jade, for being here today. And I will see you next time.
I can't wait. Thank you.
Bye.